Hello everyone. This presentation will explain about institutional failures and the escalation of violence, analyzing the Poso conflict in 1998 to 2007. The Poso conflict is a communal conflict occurred in the Poso district of Central Sulawesi, Indonesia from 1998 to 2007. The violence claimed the lives of hundreds, with estimates ranging between 600 and 1,000, and forced tens of thousands to flee their homes. This conflict is a complex mix of political, economic, and social factors, often misinterpreted as primarily religious. Institutional failure, including weak and unstable transition to democracy, ineffective and biased law enforcement, and state failure to address the root causes of the conflict, are the significant factors that gradually escalate the conflict. This presentation seeks to explore the theoretical question on how did institutional failures contribute to the escalation of violence in the Poso conflict. To answer this, the analysis draws on two key theories, which are state failures and security dilemma. State failure theory, in the context of interstate conflicts, is frequently defined by comparing it to a particular standard of statehood, and security is viewed as the most crucial aspect. State failure is a non-linear process characterized by a gradual decline, where states range from strong to weak, failed, or collapsed. In the context of the Poso conflict, this means that Indonesia was not a failed state in the traditional sense, but rather experienced localized institutional weaknesses that contributed to the conflict's escalation. There are three key indicators of state failures. The first, the collapse of power structures. The second, the breakdown of public institutions, and the third, ineffective governance. Barry Poson's theory of the security dilemma offers a crucial framework for examining the dynamics of ethnic conflict. This theory is especially relevant when the state's security guarantees begin to weaken, so the community decide to protect themselves. This theory also helps explain how groups may perceive defensive actions as threats, ultimately escalating tensions and leading to conflict. This theory, focusing on several key analytical components: the breakdown of state security, the threat perception, where one group's defensive measures are viewed as offensive by others, and mistrust in security forces. The state failure theory and security dilemma theory intersect in their explanation of the Poso conflict by highlighting how institutional breakdown and threat perception lead to escalating violence. This study analysis will explore three key indicators: the collapse of power structures, the breakdown of state security institutions leading to public mistrust, and the misinterpretation of defensive action as offensive by others, which further intensified the conflict. Communal violence in Poso began on December 24, 1998. This period, known as the first phase of Poso I, the initial spark to an altercation involving three Christian youths assaulted a Muslim youth inside the mosque. In retaliation, attacks were directed at Christian homes. The violence quickly spread, escalated over the following days, extending beyond Poso city to neighboring towns. The Poso II, or the Phase II, commenced in April 2000. This round of conflict involved more organized factions, with Christian and Muslim leaders from Poso and surrounding areas playing a more significant role in mobilizing support. The Poso III, or the Phase III, began in May 2000. The most notable incident was the massacre of around 80 Muslims at the Walisongo Mosque. By this phase, the conflict had evolved into a full-scale religious war, with mass displacement and brutal clashes. The violence continued into Phase IV, or Poso IV, which erupted in June and July 2001. With further massacres, external actors like Laskar Jihad arrived, providing Muslim militants with ideological and military support. The Poso conflict's roots can be tracked back to the colonial era, where the region's religious and ethnic divisions began to take shape. This led to a growing religious and geographical divide between the coastal Muslim communities and the highland Christians. Although often labeled as a religious conflict, the Poso conflict also involved significant ethnic dimension. Both indigenous and migrant groups engaged in ethnic targeting. Economic tension, particularly over land ownership, fueled this violence. Economic grievances intensified with the central government's transmigration program. Political factors also played a crucial role. Prior to Indonesia's transition to democracy, Poso maintained a balance of political power by sharing authority between religious groups. However, after the shift towards a democratic system, political power became increasingly contested, leading to heightened tension between groups. The conflict began to subside following the Malino Peace Declaration in December 2001. The conflict effectively ended in January 2007, following a series of police raids targeting jihadist bases. The analysis will explore three key analytical components: the collapse of power structures, the breakdown of state security institutions leading to public mistrust, and the misinterpretation of defensive actions as offensive by others, which further intensified the conflict. So the first one, the collapse of power structure. The end of Suharto's era caused widespread instability in Indonesia, with long-standing grievances in Poso quickly escalating into violence. The post-Suharto transition weakened state institutions, leading to elite power struggles. The police were ill-equipped to manage the unrest, while military reforms limited their ability to contain the violence. The collapse of power structures hindered the state's ability to uphold justice, with the government's failure to prevent or address the conflict seen as sign of weakness. This inaction led to communities to take matters into their own hands, escalating the violence further. A key moment highlighting the state's failure was the trial of Fabianus Tibo, a Christian convicted of organizing attacks on Muslims during the Phase 3. Tibo was found guilty and sentenced to death in April 2001. This event became a flashpoint that significantly escalated the violence in Phase 4. Protests erupted, with the Christian community arguing that if Tibo was sentenced to death, then all individuals involved in the violence during the Phase 1 and Phase 2, which is predominantly from the Muslim community, should also receive the same punishment. This moment was seen as a symbol of injustice, fueling distrust in the government. So the next is breakdown of state security institutions leading to public mistrust. The Reformation period in Indonesia caused a significant shift in state security operations, leading to instability within the military and the police. Under Suharto, the police operated as part of the military, but after the formal separation in 1999, tensions between the two institutions increased, leading to poor coordination in conflict areas like Poso. The police responsible for domestic security struggled with inadequate resources and training, making them unable to manage the growing violence. Meanwhile, the military resisted, losing control, adding to instability. The justice system's failure to prosecute crimes fairly deepened mistrust among both Muslim and Christian communities, and also fueling the conflict. The breakdown in state security, combined with the police unpreparedness, created an environment where communities took security into their own hands, which is also escalating the violence. And the next is threat perception, where one group's defensive measures are viewed as offensive by others. The government's failure to provide security in Poso led communities to seek their own protection. The Muslim community, for instance, welcomed Laskar Jihad, linked to Jamaah Islamiyah, to strengthen their defense. Their defensive actions, including the establishment of village security posts, were perceived by the Christian community as offensive, further escalating tensions. This reflected a deep mistrust in state security, as communities felt compelled to defend themselves. This aligned with the security dilemma theory, where both sides, mistrusting state protection, took preemptive actions out of fear, sparking repeated cycles of violence that prolonged the conflict. The Poso conflict shows how institutional breakdowns and distrust between communities can escalate the violence. Using state failure and security dilemma theories, it is clear that poor governance, inadequate security, and misinterpreted defensive actions fueled the conflict. The state failure to maintain order forced communities to take security into their own hands, worsening the violence. Ultimately, the Poso conflict underscores the danger of weak institutions during political transitions. Thank you very much.